The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, each facet scattering light like stars across a sea of tuxedos and silk gowns. Champagne flowed like a second language, and the air buzzed with the kind of laughter born from privilege and practiced charm. Sabrina Langston made her entrance precisely as planned, elegant, confident, curated. Her crimson dress hugged her figure, just enough to be noticed, but not enough to seem desperate. She offered air kisses to familiar faces every step in her stiletto heels rehearsed and soundless against the velvet carpet. Everyone noticed her. That was the point. Tonight was the Langston Foundation Galleone of the most photographed charity events of the year. Sabrina's family name sat at the top of the donor list, and her face was on the event brochure beside the phrase Young Philanthropist of the Year. She relished the spotlight until the moment it shifted. The side door creaked open almost unnoticed beneath the hum of string music. A man stepped in. His boots were caked with mud. Not decorative scuffs, but honest wet earth. His jeans were faded and dusty, his jacket wrinkled from a day that hadn't ended yet. His beard, though trimmed, carried flecks of gray. His face, weathered and quiet, held no trace of embarrassment, only focus like he had arrived on purpose. Conversation stalled. Wine glasses paused midair. One woman gasped. Another whispered. Sabrina turned to look, her brow arching in amusement. Did the valet send someone in from the service entrance? She murmured, loud enough for her table to hear. They laughed. He didn't. Jonah Whitaker's eyes scanned the room, not out of place, just uninterested. He nodded politely at a passing waiter who, unlike the others, grinned back at him. Then for the briefest moment, he met Sabrina's eyes. He didn't look offended, he looked like he understood, and that unsettled her more than the mud. The evening resumed, but with a current of curiosity running just beneath the glitter. Maybe he's someone's lost, Uncle Sabrina quipped, or a protester in disguise. Has Bold Ill give him that, her friend replied, eyeing Jonah's seat near the back of the room. Doesn't look like he belongs, Sabrina agreed. People like him didn't belong here. Not in the room where deals were made with smiles and signed with gold pens. This was a place for polish, for curated generosity. It wasn't a soup kitchen or a construction site, and yet the staff didn't avoid him. One by one, caterers, custodians, even the event planner, offered him nods, warm greetings, tiny gestures of familiarity. Sabrina watched with narrowed eyes. Who was he? Far from the chandeliers and catered plates, Jonah's memories painted a different picture. He remembered the storm that tore through Silver Hollow 3 winters ago. The night he and 3 other men dug out a collapsed roof to rescue a grandmother and her 2 grandkids. He remembered the garage behind the church where he taught teens how to replace brakes and find purpose. He remembered working 2 shifts and still finding time to fix a neighbor's porch step because she was raising 2 boys alone and stairs shouldn't be dangerous. None of those moments had a photographer. None earned applause, but each one mattered. Sabrina had spent her life in rooms like this, elegant, strategic, hungry. Her degrees came from buildings with marble staircases and ancient Latin mottos. She had learned to silence her insecurities with performance. Her mentors had taught her kindness is currency. Use it only when it earns interest. The more she watched Jonah, the man who hadn't flinched under judgment, who spoke gently to staff and waited patiently at the back of the room, the more something cracked inside her carefully guarded armor. She didn't understand him, and part of her hated that. Jonah wasn't here to be noticed. He never was. He moved through the edge of the gala, pausing only to help a flustered server balance a tray or to quietly pick up a fallen napkin without calling attention to it. No one had asked him to do it. No one ever did. Mr. Whitaker, a voice whispered from behind a curtain near the service door. A young maintenance worker peeked out wide-eyed. You fixed the boiler here last winter, didn't you? You stayed till 2 in the morning. Jonah gave a modest shrug. Wasn't going to let the kitchen freeze. 2 told my brother about you. He got clean. Said he saw you speak once at that shelter near Jefferson. Jonah nodded again, then gently pressed a finger to his lips. Don't let me ruin your job, kid. The boy beamed. Thanks for coming. Jonah just tipped his head and walked on. From her corner table, Sabrina noticed it. The nods, the smiles, the soft reverence from people who didn't wear tuxedos. She tilted her head. Something didn't match. She had expected the man in muddy boots to be ignored, pitied, maybe politely ushered out. But no, The staff, those whom Sabrina barely noticed, seemed to treat him like an old friend. One bartender placed a lemonade beside his seat. No charge, no question, just quiet acknowledgement. Sabrina narrowed her eyes. Who exactly is this man? The music faded as the evening program began. A video montage flickered to life on the grand screen behind the podium. It wasn't what Sabrina expected. No glossy commercials, no sleek foundation logos, just raw footage-worn sneakers in muddy alleys, kids clutching library cards, shelters being painted by volunteers in neon vests. One boy appeared on screen. He said, "I mattered. That's the first time anyone did," the teen mumbled. Another voice, "When our roof caved in, he didn't ask for press. He just came with a hammer." No names were mentioned, only one title repeated, "To the man who shows up when others walk away." Sabrina's posture straightened. On screen, a pair of mud-covered boots trudged through floodwater. Her heart stuttered. She knew those boots. Later, when guests were returning to their drinks and small talk, Sabrina approached Jonah. She didn't wear her usual armor. No smug grin, just measured skepticism. "Do you even know where you are?" she asked softly, arms crossed. Jonah looked up from his seat. He didn't smirk. He didn't defend himself. He simply replied, "Do you?" Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. She began fumbling for footing. This is a curated space, not a place for worn-out boots. Maybe he said, "But I didn't come for the carpet." She blinked. "Why did you come?" He sipped his lemonade. "To remind people why they give, in case they forgot." After Jonah excused himself to help clean up spilled wine in the back corner, Sabrina sat alone. Her champagne glass remained untouched. Everything felt off balance, like a room she thought she knew had tilted sideways. She pulled out her phone and searched his name quietly. Nothing came up. No social media, no headlines, just whispers in the room, smiles from staff, stories told in shaky video clips and reverent tones. Then the final image of the slideshow returned to her mind, a child's drawing of a man with gray hair and boots holding an umbrella over a shelter with the words scrawled underneath. He came back. MC's voice rang out across the hall, cutting through clinks of glasses and idle laughter. We now arrive at the moment we've all been waiting for, the annual Civic Impact Award. Each year, we honor someone whose work echoes beyond recognition, someone who has made a quiet revolution in the lives of others. Sabrina leaned back, half listening. The screen lit up again. A montage of children, teachers, single mothers, and elderly couples played. They all spoke the same name. Jonah Whitaker, Jonah Whitaker, Jonah. Her breath hitched. The room shifted, heads turned. And this year's recipient for building 38 community shelters, funding youth scholarships anonymously, and repairing not just homes but lives. Please welcome Mr. Jonah Whitaker. Gasps swept across the gala like wind across a field. Every eye turned toward the man in the worn boots and quiet eyes. Sabrina froze. Her champagne nearly slipped from her hand. He stood. No spotlight followed him, yet everyone saw him. He didn't straighten his jacket or adjust his collar. He simply walked forward as if walking into another project site. And when the MC handed him the plaque, he looked down at it like it wasn't his. Like it belonged to every person who had handed him a tool, every child who had made him laugh. Jonah stepped up to the mic, cleared his throat. "Wasn't expecting this," he said plainly. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. "I grew up fixing things, not because I was good at it, but because most folks around me couldn't afford to wait for someone else." He paused. "I'm not a leader. I'm a neighbor. I don't do this for awards. I do it because one day my daughter asked, if we don't help, who will silence? No fundraising pitch, no rehearsed lines, just the truth. And to anyone who's ever thought they weren't dressed right, educated enough, or invited, don't wait for permission to care." He looked directly at Sabrina as he said it, not accusing, not smug, just offering. "It'll keep showing up, whether or not the lights are on me." Applause thundered, not the polite kind, but the kind that shakes a room. Later, while guests hovered around Jonah, Sabrina lingered near the edge of the room. Her eyes traced the outlines of his story, the boots, the plaque, the way people spoke to him like he mattered without needing to prove anything. She realized she had looked straight through him when he entered, like so many do when power doesn't wear a suit. But now she saw him, And she saw something else too, a gap inside her, a part of her legacy that was performative, not personal. As she watched him hug an old teacher from across town, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't guilt, it was humility, and the quiet start of something new. Later that night, after most of the guests had left and the music faded into faint echoes, Sabrina found herself standing near the display of past award winners. Their names were engraved in brass, all suited, all polished. Then came Jonah's plaque, starkly simple. His name etched into the metal with no title beneath it, just for showing up when no one else would. She turned as footsteps approached. Jonah was there, hands in his pockets, as if he didn't belong under the chandelier light. "I owe you an apology," Sabrina said, voice low. "You don't owe me anything," Jonah replied. "I laughed at you," she admitted. "When you walked in, I thought you were lost. Or someone's mistake." He tilted his head, studying her. Not judging, just waiting. Sabrina took a breath. "I judged what I didn't understand. I'm sorry." Jonah gave a quiet nod. "You're not the first." The next morning she did something rare. She canceled her next 3 meetings. Instead, she drafted a proposal. Not for a merger, not for branding, but for impact. When she arrived at the address, Jonah had scribbled on a napkin an old church basement that doubled as a volunteer hub. He was already lifting drywall into a truck. "You're early," he said. "I have an offer," she said, slipping the envelope toward him. He opened it, his brow furrowed. "You want to invest?" "No," she said. "I want to learn. Partner, build what you've already started." He considered it slowly. "Most people want to attach their name to something that already works. I want to earn the right to be part of it." A long silence followed. Jonah finally smiled. "The world doesn't need more leaders, Sabrina. It needs better listeners. Then maybe it'll start by listening to you." It wasn't flashy. There were no photographers when they opened the new shelter together. Just families, volunteers, and the smell of fresh bread. Sabrina wore jeans for the first time in a decade. She asked questions. She sat with kids on the floor. And Jonah? He handed out hammers and made jokes. In time, people forgot who had laughed at whom. What remained was partnership, and respect earned, not given. One evening, as they locked up after a long day, Sabrina turned to him. "I used to think recognition was the reward." He looked at her. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I think the real reward is just knowing you showed up." Over the next several months, Jonah and Sabrina worked side by side. She traded boardrooms for tool sheds, briefcases for blueprints. Her manicured hands were now calloused in places. The world saw a rebrand. Jonah saw something better, a rebirth. When the second shelter opened, she didn't ask for media coverage. She didn't even speak. She just stood back as a young girl cut the ribbon and shouted, "Thank you." Jonah glanced over. Sabrina was wiping a tear quickly. "Hey," he said, handing her a hammer. "Well, we've got walls to paint." A year later, the gala returned. This time, Sabrina arrived early wearing flats. She helped set chairs and pour water. No red carpet, no photographers. Jonah arrived even later this time in clean boots. The room fell quiet again, but not out of judgment. This time it was reverence. When a young volunteer was given the award that night, Jonah stood and clapped the loudest. Sabrina joined him, beaming. Outside, under the same chandeliered sky, Sabrina asked him quietly, "Do you ever miss being invisible?" Jonah shrugged. "Sometimes," she nodded. "You know, you never told me what made you start all this." He looked at the stars. "Someone gave me shelter once when I had nothing. I told myself I'd never let someone go without again." She smiled. "Well, you kept that promise." In a corner of Jonah's modest office sits a polished glass case. Inside it, the same dirt-caked boots he wore to that first gala. A small brass plate reads, "Never forget where you stood," especially when no one clapped. Sabrina now visits the shelter weekly. She's not Sabrina the executive anymore. Just Sabrina, mentor, volunteer, listener. The laughter that once came at Jonah's expense now fills the shelter as kids play safe. And when people ask about the man with the award, they're told not about his RCOEM, but about his kindness, humility, and quiet strength. Because in the end, he didn't need clean shoes to leave a mark. He just needed to walk in.